Millions of young professionals are doing exactly what the online gurus tell them to do. They are putting their money to work. They hold fractional shares of tech companies. They pipe into crypto pre-sales. They feel like investors. But behind the glowing green charts of their brokerage apps, their actual bank account is a graveyard. They are playing the market with zero cash reserves and a mounting pile of consumer debt. They aren't investors. They are gamblers, playing with money they desperately need to survive next week. The Federal Reserve tracks the exact cost of financial vulnerability. A few years ago, the benchmark for an unexpected emergency was $400. Today, inflation has pushed that number much higher. The modern life glitch, a blown transmission, a broken dental crown, or a sudden gap in employment now averages exactly $1,585. It is a highly specific, awkward amount. It won't bankrupt a prepared household instantly, but it is large enough to completely wipe out a bufferless worker. Watch what happens to that exact number on this chart when you don't have the cash on hand. 60% of Americans are forced to put that $1,585 emergency on a credit card, with the average interest rate hovering around 26.4%, making only the minimum payments turns a standard car repair into a massive, compounding financial burden. Over several years, that single glitch will cost over $3,500 in principal and interest. You end up paying a steep poverty tax directly to a major bank simply because you lacked liquid cash. The financial system is optimized to keep you in exactly this position. You are encouraged to lock your money into volatile markets or spend it on high-interest credit, leaving you entirely without a buffer. A worker with no cash reserves cannot afford to quit a toxic job. They cannot afford to negotiate. A scared, compliant worker is the most profitable asset a corporation can own. To understand why we make terrible financial choices when we're broke, we have to look at the biology of cognitive bandwidths. When you realize you cannot cover an impending bill, your brain enters a state of deep scarcity. The prefrontal cortex, the logical, long-term planning center of your brain, shuts down. In its place, the amygdala, your ancient survival center, takes complete control. Its only directive is to keep you alive for the next 10 minutes, entirely ignoring your financial future. Psychologists call this entering the tunnel. Researchers at Harvard and Princeton conducted a landmark study to quantify this exact biological response. They discovered that the mental tax of worrying about basic financial survival is so heavy, it actively degrades your cognitive processing power. The stress of being tight on cash temporarily reduces your functional IQ by exactly 14 points. Losing 14 IQ points equates to the cognitive impairment of losing an entire night of sleep. When you are missing that much processing power, you become a scarcity animal. You will panic sell your stocks at the absolute bottom of the market. You will buy a lottery ticket when you only have $20 left to your name. Your biology forces you to make emotional, destructive decisions. You cannot build wealth while you are biologically impaired by stress. Before you buy a single share of stock, a bond, or a fraction of digital gold, you have to reclaim those 14 IQ points. You must build a psychological floor. The first step to reclaiming your cognitive bandwidth is Phase 1, the $1,000 firewall. This is a highly specific liquid cache of money kept entirely separate from your primary checking account. You place it in a high-yield savings account at a completely different bank, creating a 24 to 48-hour transfer delay. That lag creates friction. It stops you from impulsively spending survival money on a spontaneous dinner and guarantees the funds are there when a true life glitch hits. Most claim they cannot find an extra $1,000. You do it through a 30-day blitz. You audit your bank statements and ruthlessly eliminate ghost subscriptions, the premium apps and streaming services you completely forgot about. Then you liquidate physical clutter. You sell the unworn shoes and the old electronics gathering dust. You trade idle junk for concrete security. Once the firewall is secure, you move to Phase 2, 6-month fortress. Outdated personal finance books tell you to save exactly 3 months of living expenses. In a modern economy where corporate restructurings eliminate tens of thousands of jobs overnight, the average duration of unemployment stretches to 5 or 6 months. A 3-month buffer guarantees terror by month 4. You must build a 6-month fortress. Let's calculate the exact survival math on this chart. Layer 1 is your bare-bone non-negotiables: rent, basic utilities, internet, basic transportation, and base-level groceries. Layer 2 adds your pure protection costs, baseline health insurance, and the absolute minimum payments on your debt to keep collectors away. You add those 2 layers together, say $3,500 a month, and multiply it by 6. That gives you a strict mathematical target. In this example, exactly $21,000.
That $21,000 sitting in a high-yield account is the most active money you own. It is a moat around your life. It provides the financial oxygen to endure a mass layoff without panic. It transitions you from a desperate job beggar forced to take the first low-paying offer into a strategic job selector who can wait for the perfect opportunity. With your cash buffer secure, you must address the silent parasite in your pocket: consumer debt. This split-screen chart illustrates the massive trap of modern retail investing. On the left, we have the optimistic retail investor, hoping to earn a 10 to 12% return in the stock market. On the right, that same person is carrying a revolving credit card balance, charging them 26% annual interest. Merge these lines on the chart, and the reality of the math becomes clear. If you earn 12% in the market, but pay 26% to a bank, you guarantee a net loss of 14% of your wealth every single year. This is the math of the sucker. Investing while holding high-interest debt makes you a highly profitable donation to the banking system. We must completely reframe our approach to debt elimination. Paying off a credit card that charges 26% interest is the mathematical equivalent of earning a guaranteed, risk-free, tax-free 26% return on your money. No hedge fund manager on earth can offer you a guaranteed 26% yield. Killing that debt is the most lucrative investment you can make. The financial industry wants you to obsess over an 800 credit score, treating it like an adult report card. An 800 credit score with 0 cash proves you are excellent at paying interest on time. It's a metric of your compliance and profitability to lenders, completely detached from your actual net worth or personal freedom. You achieve financial escape velocity only when you eradicate the debt parasites entirely. You stop the institutional bleed of your cash flow, locking the doors against lenders who rely on your vulnerability to generate their quarterly profits. You earn the right to step into the arena of true investing when you hit the green light parameters. Your $1,000 firewall is completely untouched. Your 6-month fortress is fully funded and sitting in cash, and every cent of your high-interest debt has been reduced to absolute 0. You now enter the owner class. Instead of blindly pouring cash into a broad index fund and hoping for a return in 40 years, you start allocating capital strategically. You buy the productive equity providing the plumbing for new technologies, like data centers and energy providers. You purchase hard assets and digital reserves with strict, unchangeable supply caps. You acquire assets that work for you. Because you have a fortress of cash beneath you, you become an anti-fragile investor. When the inevitable market correction hits and asset prices drop by 40%, you do not panic. The bufferless investors are forced to liquidate their portfolios to pay rent. You use your secure cash flow to buy those exact same assets at a massive discount. You structurally benefit from economic chaos. The wealthiest individuals in the world understand this exact mechanism. They intentionally hold massive reserves of liquid cash at all times. They do not view uninvested cash as a loss to inflation. They view it as a permanent call option on market panic.
They keep their powder dry so they can act decisively when the rest of the world is paralyzed by fear. The ultimate goal of building your psychological floor is not to buy a sports car or impress strangers on the internet. It is purchasing the absolute power to say the word no. No to toxic bosses. No to predatory loans. No to financial panic. You build the floor, pour the concrete, and secure your autonomy in a world that desperately wants you to remain a vulnerable consumer.